Hi Mahesh.
Hi Raj.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started with the technical introduction of SnapLogic, and then we'll start with hands-on maybe from the next session.
Sure.
So as the other day we were talking about what is SnapLogic as a tool. The main purpose of SnapLogic as a tool is for the cloud integration. That means if you would like to transfer the data, or if you'd like to transform the data amongst your cloud endpoints, then we use a cloud integration platform tool, and SnapLogic is one such tool that helps us with cloud integrations, right? And let's get started with what are all the features that we have, and talking about the interface of it, and we need to know how it works in the backend in terms of architecture and all that, nomenclature and all that. So that is what we have as part of the plan. We'll start with architecture, and then we'll talk about all the objects that we have uh, within SnapLogic.
Okay.
So let's start with architecture. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to stop me and then you can have your questions asked.
Yes, sure.
So starting with how this works and what are all the objects that consist of a SnapLogic platform is, you have something called platform, you have something called a Snaplex, and you have something called snaps. Just give me a minute, guys. Yeah, sorry. Right. So in architecture, there are three components that we need to identify and understand. First, there is something called platform and snaplexes and snaps. So let's start with platform. Platform means you see the web interface that you access to build your jobs, you build your pipelines, right? End-to-end development. So this is what called as a platform. When you log in with your credentials, uh, let me just quickly interface of the web portal wherein we'll do all the development and all that is what platform. Now, who is taking care of hosting this? Who is taking care of upgrades of this? And all that is completely taken care by SnapLogic. This is offered to us as an iPaaS solution, that is integrated platform as a solution. That means this platform itself is available for us as a web service, not as a solution. So we do not have to worry about hosting this particular URL and upgrading the software that runs this particular platform and all that. SnapLogic will take care of that from time to time. So this is what first component, platform. Now, second thing is where or when you create a pipeline here and when you execute that particular pipeline from here, it has to run on a particular machine, right? In order to use the resources of that particular machine, be it the cores of your machine, or be it the amount of the memory that it requires, the amount of CPU cycles that it requires to load, to read, and to handle that load. So where do that particular run happens is on your machines which are identified as your snaplexes, right? So second object in your architecture is snaplexes, and a snaplex is typically is your cloudplex. Now talking about snaplex, based on where you host these, right? The machines that you use to run your code on, to run your pipelines on, if the machines are hosted on your cloud, they are called as Cloudplex. Instead, the same machines are hosted on premise within your firewall, then that is called as Groundplex, right? There can be hybrid plex also, which is you can have certain nodes as part of your cloud and then some nodes as part of your on-premise. But otherwise, typically a cloud plex and a ground plex, and then you have a hybrid plex also. So that is the second part of your architecture, that is SnapLexes. First thing where you write all the code, write as in you build all the code. Second thing, the nodes or the machines that actually run that particular code, which is SnapLexes. Now, when you create a particular pipeline in your platform, how do you create that pipeline? What do you need to create these pipelines is objects called snaps. All right, to read a particular source or to write in a particular target, and after read and write in between, if you want to perform any data transformations, you need a particular object called a transformation object called snap. So these snaps are again available within your platform itself. Snaps are part of your platform. Now, why do we talk about specially snaps is based on your licensing, based on your requirement, based on your partnership with SnapLogic. The availability of snaps will differ. There are advanced snaps, right? There are premium snaps and there are core snaps. Core snaps, as in your basic snaps, read, write, and most uh, uh, popularly used snaps and so on. But there are premium snaps also, that means very rarely used, and which are advanced in nature. Something like, for example, if you have to read and write from a messaging queue called Kafka, you need your premium snaps. Kafka snaps are by default not available in your core snaps. You need to pay more to get those snaps. So that is the reason snaps are available based upon your purchasing amount, based upon your licensing and all. And they are basically packaged into something called snap packs. Okay, snap packs. So there are premium snap packs, there are core snap packs, and so on. So these three put together, your architecture will form. And how the communication happens amongst all these is you have your cloud web app, which is your platform, and you have your data sources, and your data sources can be on cloud like this or on premise, right? It can be an RDBMS or a Hadoop cluster, which is on premise, or it can be your cloud endpoints like your AWS, Salesforce, and so on, right? So how does the read from your data sources be? They may be your cloud or on premise, and then they the pipelines which you build on the cloud web app, that is your platform, will be communicating, right? Your pipeline is built on your platform, that is just your code, but you built a code defining things like your source is so and so, your target is so and so. That means when you run that particular pipeline, your SnapLogic server need to communicate with your third-party source systems, right? All these third-party source systems. So which particular instance or which particular server software would take care of this particular communication with your external systems, as well handling the load of your pipeline processing, is what the SnapLex does. So that is what the SnapLexes are doing here. The players that takes care of communicating with your code as well as your data points, data systems. Code means which is nothing but your metadata, right? And running that particular code on your SnapLexes. So that is how the communication happens on your SnapLogic. Three main parts. One is your code repository, which is your cloud web application. Another one is your data systems, which can be your third party data systems, which may be on your cloud or on your premise. And when you execute your pipelines, which are built on your platform, the communication with your external systems, data systems to read write process is done with the help of SnapLex, and as well the data transfer, right? So that is briefly about
Raj, I have a
architecture of
question.
SnapLogic and how it works. Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand the difference between the Cloudplex and the Groundplex. So can the Cloudplex get the data from on-prem hosted server, say for example Oracle or MySQL,
Yeah.
or it has
So
to
you
go
see,
through
when you
Groundplex?
call a particular cloudplex, it is not just the machines that run your code. Cloudplex is also a cluster of your data systems. Okay. So
Okay.
when you build a cloudplex, this cloudplex will have the instances on cloud which run your code, which can communicate with only your on cloud data systems. A cloudplex cannot communicate with your on premise data systems.
The
Same
only
with
ground So Groundplex can communicate with both on-prem systems and the cloud systems, is it?
uh, that is referred as your hybrid plex typically.
Oh, okay. That's very
Okay,
interesting.
as we talked
Because
about, there is your cloudplex, there is your cloud ground, and then hybrid plex.
okay,
So
okay,
in hybrid plex, what we'll do is we make some of these cloud systems, we make some of your on-premise systems also part of that particular common SnapLex, which is called as your hybrid plex. Otherwise, if it is a pure cloud, it can communicate only amongst your cloud endpoints. Otherwise, if it is purely ground, you can communicate only within the systems that are behind your firewall, that is on premise.
got it, got it.
Okay? Yeah. So that is pretty much what we have with architecture, and these are pretty standard advantages we find with working with any cloud integration tool. That is, it comes as a self-service. That means you can build some reusable solution and all that, and it can communicate with all your latest architecture and infrastructures, and it is connected all the 24/7 since it is offered as iPaaS solution. And next thing is there is something called an AI assistant which is integrated within the SnapLogic platform, which basically helps during the development phase. So how it works is, for example, let's say now I'm building this snap. It is immediately suggesting what can be the following snap that comes downstream to the previous one. So it is suggesting the mapper snap here. It is blinking. If that is what the expected one, I can just select that and that is added. And again, you see the moment I added mapper, it is immediately suggesting what could be the possible snap that comes. If it is the one that you expect, you can. Otherwise, you just select from the suggested snap. So this pane, what we are seeing, suggested pane, this is your iris pane. Okay. So how they are coming up with the suggestions is they scan or they capture the information across all the users based upon the designs that they make, which can be the most probable snap that comes after a particular snap, is what has been learned on real time, right? It is not something like they just defined over a place and then it is using the same thing. No, it is something learned on real time basis. As the users keep using a particular snap, as users keep designing their snap pipelines, the AI assistant, that is Iris, will learn about them accordingly, right? And we'll get those suggestions generated accordingly here. So this will help us a lot actually during the development uh, to ease up your work. So that is what we have: your Iris client, an integration assistant, an AI client, right? Artificial integration intelligence assistant. So next, talking about the terminology and what we have and so on, key terms and concepts. These are the few key terms and concepts that we need to get ourselves familiar with. Starting with snaps, we already talked about in detail about what is a snap and what we have. But In order to talk about, we have a bunch of snaps, about 400 plus snaps are there, but they all are actually categorized into 6 particular categories, right? Based upon the behavior, they based upon their capabilities and all that. So there are read snaps, there are flow snaps, parse, transform, format, and write snaps, right? As the name indicates itself, read snaps are the ones that helps us read the data from your sourcing systems. Same with write, in order to write or deliver the data. There is something called format snaps and parse snaps. These two are the important things. Parse snaps and format snaps. So what happens is, or why we need these is, you see, whenever a file object is read through your SnapLogic pipeline, that is read as a binary object. Okay, a file object is read as a binary object. Even when you are generating a new file, SnapLogic generates that particular file as a binary object. But during the data transmission within the pipeline, the data transmission happens as a document, okay, not as binary data, as a document data. That means the document data is in the format of JSON. Since it is a document data, the document data is in the format of JSON. So the purpose of parse snaps, whatever we have, are used to convert the binary into document. When you are reading the data, you read the data in binary format. But eventually, in order to transform the data as part of your pipeline, you need to convert that into document format. So
Okay.
what snaps that are helping that with conversion from binary to document is parse snaps. Similarly, after performing all the data transformation through a pipeline, at your final step, when you want to write the document, you again have to convert that document data into binary format and then you write your file. So your format snaps will help us do that. Format snaps help us convert document to binary format. And then the other two formats are copy and transform. They are pretty standard transformation type objects it will handle. As you can see, join, sort, mapper, copy, and all that is standardized data transformation. Now, one important observation. Whenever we bring in a particular snap, okay, we have snaps like this, and then we have snaps like this. Sorry, let me just, okay, and I'll bring in few snaps, and then, right. So these are the snaps that I have. Now observe the links, the input anchors and output anchors of every snap. Few snaps have anchors in circle, few snaps have anchors in the diamond, right? Few have diamond as input, few have diamond as output, circle as input, circle as output. So what actually does they mean? So that is what we have been talking about, document and binary. So diamond color link means that is your binary data. Circle color link means that is your document data. Now let's understand again, come here. Your read snaps, as we already discussed, a file object is read in the binary format. So that is the reason read object or the read snaps will give the data in the binary format, which is in your diamond link. But in order to transform the data as part of the pipeline, you need to convert them into document. So for that purpose, parse snaps are required, for which input is taken as your binary. You see that diamond link input, but given the output in the document format, right? You take the read, which is giving the binary, you use the parse, which will convert binary to document, and then you use this transform or flow snaps, which will be taking input in the binary, output also binary. See, both circles. But when it comes to writing a object, write again will happen in the binary. That is the reason the write snaps will accept the binary data only. But how do you convert this transform or flow data into binary? You need to use format snaps. For those, you take the binary as input, circle as input, and diamond as output. So, right? So now, hopefully, it makes more sense about the types of snaps and the links that they have in two representations, diamond and circle. So that's about snaps. And talking about snap packs, snap packs are nothing but based upon how they are categorized based upon their capabilities. You just put them into a category called snap pack, right? So for example, all the snaps that deal with Azure SQL are put into Azure SQL snap pack, right? So this Azure SQL snap pack will have read type of snaps, write type of snaps, even if applicable, flow or parse type of snaps also, right? So that is what snap and snap pack means. And we were talking about earlier, right? Snap packs are premium snap packs, which will be provided as part of your paid subscriptions only. Core snap packs as part of your generic subscriptions, right? So whatever the snap packs that we are seeing here as part of the trial account, these are your core snaps, whatever we are seeing. But in your projects, in your enterprise level, you may see additional snap packs also based upon your licensing and so on. Next, pipelines. So pipelines we already have seen briefly. So they are basically built or using snaps connected to each one of them. And in order to run a particular pipeline, we'll use the run option available in the designer, right? So that is what a pipeline. Now, when you're creating a pipeline, we are using a bunch of snaps together. Now imagine there is a requirement, you have to build maybe 10 pipelines. Now in these 10 pipelines, certain part of your transformation logic is getting repeated. In the 10 snap pipelines that you have to build, certain part of transformation logic, let's imagine maybe uh, your each pipeline is on an average is going to be 30 snaps each. Each pipeline on an average is going to be having 30 snaps each. Now in each of these pipeline, at least up to 10 snaps, what are the transformation logic that you need to achieve, it is to be repeated. Okay, so what do? Instead of recreating those 10 snaps across all the 10 pipelines every time, you can create that part of your snap pipeline as a reusable object. Okay, the part of your snap pipeline you can create as a reusable object, which you can simply reuse that as part of your new pipelines instead of creating that from scratch. So that reusable pipelines what you can create is what called as patterns. Okay, patterns means your reusable pipelines which you can use to be part of new pipelines. So that is what a pattern means. Okay, so here in this diagram you can see this is a pattern I have created. which is used as part of these two different pipelines and then extended with their additional pipeline logic. You see, until this particular level, it is the same logic I need to use in the two pipelines. So I created a pattern and then I simply used it and then additionally added whatever the additional object that is required. Okay, so that is what a pattern. So far we talked about snap, snap pack, pipeline, pattern. Next, tasks. Tasks are part of your manager. So before we talk about tasks, let's get familiar with these three views here. In your platform, when you log in, first you'll be launched into designer, and then you have two other views, which is manager and dashboard. So manager is mostly for your administrative activities, right? In order to create project folders, in order to create connection objects, in order to maintain your user profiles, giving access management, all that is done in your SnapLogic Manager. Next, about dashboard. Dashboard is kind of a monitor for you in order to monitor the health of your Snaplexes and the execution of your pipelines also, right? If you would like to look at the runtime properties of the pipelines that were executed, you can come here and then look at how many rows were processed and what is the status of that particular run, what is the throughput of that particular data, and all that information is available in your dashboard. Okay, designer is for the development part, manager is for the administrative part, dashboard is for the monitoring purpose, right? So now coming to the manager, we have something called tasks available. So task is used in order to execute a pipeline on automated basis. Okay, so there are something called triggered task and there are scheduled task and ultra task. Let's talk about each one of them. First, let's talk about scheduled task. Scheduled task is nothing but, as the name itself mentions, is used in order to enable automation of your pipeline execution. For example, let's say there is a pipeline that you need to run daily on maybe at 7 o'clock in the morning. So how do you ensure that is run on automation basis without any manual intervention is you need to create a scheduled task. So that's the purpose of your scheduled task. Next, trigger task. Trigger task is one of the very important feature and useful feature available within SnapLogic. That is, you see whatever the pipeline that you create in your SnapLogic, which is nothing but a data integration solution, right? You design some logic there that you need to read some from somewhere. You apply some transformation logic. You have to write somewhere. Now, if this particular solution needs to be called as part of some other application, how do you ensure that? How do you able to remotely call this particular solution? Is you can actually expose or publish your pipeline as a web service API. Your pipeline, whatever you create, can be published or exposed as a web service API. How do you do that is you need to create a trigger task for your pipeline. So what is a trigger task? Trigger task enables a pipeline to be exposed or published as a REST API link, REST web service API link. Okay, so once the pipeline is created with a trigger task, we'll be getting a HTTP link using which you can call that particular pipeline as a web service API remotely from any other applications also. That is what trigger task. Next, talking about ultra task. Ultra task is a very advanced level which is not available with the trial version we'll be using. So we may not be covering the hands-on part of ultra task, but what is ultra task is it is used for streaming of the data, right? The real-time processing of the data, and as well It is used to run on your Spark-based architecture. You see, scheduled tasks, trigger tasks, or the generic pipelines are processing the data on your batch mode. That means when you call that particular pipeline or when you trigger that particular pipeline, the data is captured and then processed and then loaded. But if there is a pipeline that needs to be running always, right? That means on a streaming basis, then you need to create something called ultra task. So that is what ultra task means. So, but mainly the most popular tasks are triggered and scheduled task only.
Okay.
Okay. So that's about tasks what we have. Snaplexes, we already talked about them. Groundplex we have Cloudplexes, and then there is your hybrid plex also. And as we already talked about, a Snaplex is nothing but a cluster which will be consisting of multiple nodes within it. Now these nodes can be your Windows nodes, can be Linux nodes, and these nodes will be execution servers as well as your data servers, right? Your data endpoints as well as your execution servers. And then there is something called organizations. Organizations is nothing but your environments, right? Your dev environment, production environment, testing, and so on. So you have Snaplexes for your dev Snaplex, prod Snaplex, stage Snaplex, and so on. They are referred as orgs, organizations. Subscription features, we talked about two things. One is the premium snap packs, which are available as part of your subscription feature, and as well as ultra tasks. So that is what a brief overview of SnapLogic as an integration platform, right? We need to know about all the key terms and all that. So before we close the session, or before we go for the knowledge check, if you have any questions, you can let me know.
I think I'm good for now.
Okay. So before we close the session, we have 4 questions just to check a knowledge check. Let's see how much we were able to capture through this session.
Okay.
Right. So first one, a Snaplex is a computational unit which performs a data operation. Is it true or false?
True.
Is it a computational unit?
I think it's a snap. Snaplex is it is a processing for multiple computational units. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
false.
False. Snaplex is not a computational unit. It doesn't perform a single data operation. The answer is a snap actually. Snap is a computational unit which performs a single data operation. So obviously this is false. Next, a pipeline is created by connecting one or more nodes.
False. Snaps.
False. Snaps, right? So which is the one that is that we get by connecting all the nodes? What is a collection of nodes?
It's a Snaplex.
Snaplex, right? So next, ultra task can be created for any pipeline if the subscription feature is enabled.
No, it's only for streaming pipelines.
Correct, exactly. For the batch mode pipelines, ultra task cannot be created. It is only for the streaming pipelines. Next, which of these are the types of snaps which we talked about? Which are the valid snap types? The 6
The second
types.
one, B. Read,
Read,
pass,
pass,
transform,
transform, flow
flow,
from,
format,
exactly,
library.
the second one, right? Okay, so that's about it. And in this session, this is what we learned. The architecture first we talked about, and then we briefly looked at what are the different concepts or the terminology that we need to get familiar with. Okay, so we'll stop it here for today, a brief session.
Okay, okay,
And then from tomorrow onwards, we'll start with hands-on. I'll also walk you through how to get the environment set up for you to start hands-on as well.
okay, sure.